I appreciate you making the time. I know we met through our mutual friend David, and I don't know how much you know about me, except I'm some random guy on the other end of the screen right now. I do play clarinet. You know, you blow on the pointy end and the sound comes out. But for those who will be watching and listening, my guest today is Patrick. I'll have you introduce yourself a little bit. Maybe give a brief overview of your who you are and what you do. I can grill you from there if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a clarinetist as well in the Chicagoland area. I did my master's at Northwestern back graduated in 2006. So I've been in the area ever since. I teach at the Chicago High School for the Arts, Concordia University, and Moraine Valley Community College. And I also am a full-time member of the Rockford Symphony. So sorry, hold on.
No worries. No worries.
We have a watchdog. See how vicious he is? So, as I was saying, I'm a member of the Rockford Symphony, but I've also played with, Chicago Sinfonietta, Elgin, South Bend, Quad Cities, basically anyone who will have me. I will go and I will play for you. I also play flute and sax, so I do a lot of shows out at like Paramount, Marriott, Goodman, Chicago Shakespeare, that type of thing. Again, whoever wants me, I'll go, right? And then I recently was an artist clinician for D'Addario Woodwinds for the past 4 years, where I go around and I give free clinics and I present the products and give out samples and talk about that. So
nice.
Yeah, basically what I do pre-COVID.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole slice of discussion there. How have maybe in a nutshell, how have you managed a music career in the age of COVID so far?
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm having to do like a side gig now doing Instacart. It's been a year, so it's really, I started off okay over the summer, believe it or not. Thank goodness for unemployment. I had enough W-2 work that it was able to pick it up, and that's how I survived until school started. Aside from that, it's been just teaching. That's the only thing that's really keeping me afloat. I have been really fortunate to do a few small chamber performances that people have been kind enough to donate to us for that. So that is, that was great, especially during the summer when we were able to play outside. And then I think about October is when we had to call it quits or move it indoors, and do like I'm sure you've seen like Acapella, the app where you can record. Yeah. So we've been doing that. And so now that it's getting warm, we're excited to return back outside and play. So it's been just kind of, by chance getting donations, aside from the teaching, but in terms of, performing, there's just none. Right. There's nothing going on, so it's pretty bad. It's pretty gruesome out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people I've talked to, we're in very similar positions. I had a similar experience over the summer, with the W-2 work and being able to get some support from that. But my in-person studio teaching more or less dried up. It's been hard to kind of get new people to transition into the e-learning format. I have other businesses I'm trying to run, but it's been quite a journey trying to get things rolling. And a lot of my guests have been in a similar spot depending on their where they are in the country. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm feeling pretty positive that, you know, things will open up, and I'm already seeing a lot of evidence of people kind of adapting to the circumstances. I feel like I've seen a lot of YouTube content like this, and performances
Mhm.
where, you know, maybe people otherwise would not have, you know, they might have waited for the next audition, or you know, the next sub gig or something, and people just start cranking out content. So we'll see what happens, but I'm feeling pretty positive.
Yeah,
I'm sure things will will open up more for you as well.
yeah. I mean, and it's grateful, it's great to have all these new kind of like things like we're doing right now. It's definitely stretched, I think, every single person to be creative. And, all my teaching has been remote up until just recently. Like the colleges have returned back to person.
Mhm.
The high school, we're still doing remote, and it's been a year now of doing that, and it's really difficult because I can only do so much through the computer.
Right.
I usually tell them, I'm like, well, if I think you sound good on Zoom, then you must sound great in real life. So but yeah, it's nice that we're able to figure out like a plan B, so to speak. But it's been a nice experiment. I'm ready to I'm ready to go back to, simpler things, as in like I can actually see my student in person and be
Right.
like, oh, okay, now I can assess this more correctly, rather than I think you froze.
Yeah.
Those statements I've said so many times, and my students that I see now in person, like they are just improving so much faster now because it's actual instruction, and it's like
Right.
immediate, and their attitudes are just so much more positive because they're able to just do that, like a simple clarinet lesson.
Mhm.
And especially for the college kids, I feel bad, they're so paying for, that tuition to do
Oh,
it
yeah, yeah.
here, so could you imagine being in college right now and paying a lot of money just to sit
Stay
on
at
your
home and look at your computer. Yeah.
yeah. So that's, I think they're really appreciating that too, and I think it's going to just make everyone appreciate everything more, which is definitely a positive thing. And I've realized, like, oh yeah, I'm so much more grateful now for all the stuff I was able to do before. And when we get back, I'm going to appreciate it so much. So,
Yeah.
like I don't ever want to complain about having a gig or going
Right.
to teach or this or that or whatever. So,
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it myself. So, let me jump way back here. How did you even get started in clarinet in the first place? Um,
yeah, so I grew up in Tennessee, and we started band in sixth grade. And I knew that I was going to join band. It was either you did like the vocational thing, like home ec and, wood making, all that stuff, or you would do the band route. Like you couldn't do both. And I knew that I was going to go towards the band side. And it was in fifth grade. I remember this very well. There was a commercial for Burger King's Kids Club, which was their equivalent to the Happy Meal. And it was a commercial, and this boy who was around my age says, he's like, when I grow up, I want to be in a band. And then like they cut to him wearing like really thick glasses with tape on it. His hair was like slicked down. His wearing suspenders and a bow tie, and he had a clarinet. And the clip, I've looked for it ever since, but I can't find it. But I think he's like playing a scale or something, and then he squeaks, and then it cuts back to him, goes, no, like a rock band, and then he's all like punked out playing guitar. But it was that image of him all dorky with a clarinet that I was like, that's my instrument. Like I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know anything about it, but it was just one of those things. I saw it and I was like, all right, that's what I'm gonna be playing. And, the next year I went to the open house, and I remember just waiting through all the woodwinds and, kind of being like, no, it's not that, it's not that. And he picked up the clarinet, and I was like, yep, definitely that is the one for me. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the image of him all geeked out, that really spoke to me. And I thought, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
and then,
we don't always get to pick our source of inspiration. It just
yeah,
does. Sometimes that's just how it happens. And
yeah.
look where it's led.
And yeah, and my second year playing, I was in seventh grade, and my grandparents cut out an article about Berkeley College of Music. And I remember asking my private teacher, I was like, oh, you can actually go to college for clarinet? And she's like, oh yeah, you can major in music, do this, do this, do this. And that's when I knew exactly. I was like, okay, well, check that off, that I'm going to college for clarinet. And then that, it was really no questions. It was just made for me pretty easily. And I just assumed that everybody was, fortunate enough to know what they were going to do by the time they got to high school.
Mm.
So it was really, really interesting that I had friends who were still kind of undecided. And it's like, oh, well, I've known for years, 5-6 years now what I was going to do. And it just, I don't know if it's good or not, but it's just one of those things I didn't even think twice about it. Just said, all right, well, that's my path. So fairly easy.
Nice. And you mentioned Tennessee. Where about in Tennessee were you from?
Hour south of Nashville, in a small town called Columbia.
All right.
So I did my pre-college work at Vanderbilt at Blair School of Music. So my junior and senior years of high school, I went up there once a week, and I did private lessons, the youth symphony. I did like a theory class and stuff like that, just kind of prepared me for college. Right. And then I did my undergrad at Middle Tennessee State University with Dr. Todd Waldecker. And that was, a great experience, learned so much, and then came up here for graduate school right after at Northwestern.
And chosen to stay here around this area since?
Yeah, upon graduation, there was just so many more opportunities up here in terms of teaching, in terms of playing. There's a ton of regional orchestras all within driving distance. I don't know that many down in Tennessee. I mean, the Nashville Symphony, which is an amazing symphony, they're so good, but that's about it. I mean, I've played with Huntsville, Alabama. Mm-hmm. But there's just like Chattanooga, and there's just like, a couple small ones, but yeah. I didn't know anything about it. And
yeah, the scene seems a little more spread out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By a lot more hours, hours distance, like Memphis to Chattanooga, to Alabama. I mean, like it would be a lot harder to maintain it.
Yeah. All right. Now, were you speaking of your school background, were you performance the whole track, or was there any music education at any point, or some other focus?
Yeah, it was just clarinet performance the whole time. And I remember thinking, maybe everyone does this in undergrad, but I remember thinking like, maybe I should do like a music theory minor or something. And then I got to like, 20th century tonality and was like, nope, can't do that. And then I thought, well, what about maybe music history minor? Maybe I can get a job teaching music history and clarinet. And we did like all the, Middle Ages and Renaissance and Dark Age, like before all that. And I was like, no, can't do that either. Yeah. So I was like, well, clarinet performance is where it is. And I knew that I was going to teach privately, so I did a little bit of that in college and in grad school. So that was just kind of one of the things I just knew from experience, like I will be supplementing income with a private studio or some sort of teaching along with playing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's certainly the reality that I lived through. Like, yeah, I started in music ed in undergrad, and student teaching came along, and that's when it hit me. Like, I don't think I want to do this as a career. Like, I don't want to be the band director. As much as I respect the directors who can really do it well, I realized it wasn't for me.
A lot of work.
Yeah,
It's crazy amounts, and I
and for such a broad audience,
yes,
like
yes,
I have another my previous guest I have to edit his episode yet, but he's in a program and he's built it up to like 150 just in the band,
wow,
and like to me I can't even fathom managing like a fraction of that all at once.
yeah.
You know?
I mean,
So,
I see band directors and they're constantly working, they're constantly busy, and I'm teaching future band directors at Concordia. My music majors are music ed. I even teach the clarinet techniques class for the music ed majors, where they've never played clarinet before. So I have to teach them on how to do that. And, I'm only given 7 class meetings, 50 minutes each, to teach them everything about clarinet. So it's very fast. And, I definitely give them the lecture of, being a band director is incredibly serious. You have to know every instrument, and you have to be able to answer questions, and you have to be able to teach it. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to be able to do that because you have a whole class of students who are looking up to you for the answers to figure out how to do it. And I'd say, that's more than I can do. Sometimes dealing with just one instrument is enough. I couldn't imagine being responsible for brass and or strings or percussion or double reeds or something like that. So, you know, definitely band directors are just constantly working, and it's a very busy field. And I feel like a lot of times they do way more than that's in their job description, but they do that so they can expand the group. They can gain people, they can get it to where it needs to be. But I mean, it's
because you're not just thinking of that program for that year. It's a long game. It's such a long game for them. You're like, and then you don't want to end up being that band who has, like 50 trombonists and one alto saxophone or something, because you just the management.
yeah.
So definitely not for me, but uh, great respect to the people who do it well, and of course these are the people who feed us back in our studio if we're fortunate enough.
Right.
So let me ask uh, regarding your studio. Assuming a typical, COVID aside, and all the e-learning stuff, what's a really good day in your studio for you? Like a really good day at work?
A really good day, I think it's when the students have accomplished something. It could be something small, but I think that a really good day is when everyone shows up and they are just on it. They're able to achieve something they haven't before. Maybe they all sound really good. They all sound really polished. Whether or not they've actually practiced or not, or if it's a new read or not, it's everyone sounds good. They're picking up the concepts really fast. They're turning it around, and they're growing. I think that's a really fun time for me as a teacher, because it shows progress. And I think a lot of us get maybe bogged down a little bit where for weeks and weeks and weeks you might just feel like nothing's changing.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And then finally you get that breakthrough. And I love those moments when a student is able to play a high note that they couldn't, or I love when I have seniors and I, go back to their freshman year and I say, remember when you did this and you couldn't do this and now look at you, and so I've always said that I need to start recording the very first lessons when I start a new student, just so they can see their progress, because a lot of times they come in and they're really stressed out, mostly like in the collegiate level,
Mhm.
but definitely in high school as well. And they're really down because they just feel like, am I even getting better? Like, what am I doing? I mean, I've been there. Maybe you've been there. Like
Definitely,
you,
yeah.
you have those moments where your lesson's not really a playing lesson; it's more of a therapeutic talk
Yeah.
session.
Yes.
And what I have to tell them is, you are with your instrument. You hear yourself every day. I hear you once a week, and trust me, like I will let you know if we're, stagnant. I'll let you know if we're progressing. I'll let you know if we're declining. And so far, like I'm hearing a ton of progress. You have to look at it like the bigger picture, and
Mhm.
it's just one of those things you have to constantly monitor the motivation in students. You have to push them, as much as they physically can be pushed, and it's constantly pushing, then easing up, and then motivating, but then also letting them know that they haven't met their goals. So you need to, like, kind of scold them a little bit, but
Yeah.
then motivate them again, and stuff. So it's just like it's a very fragile situation. So I think when we have these breakthroughs or just a good playing day, they sound fantastic on their material, then that's a very fun day for me. And I
Yeah.
think it's fun for them too, because they're proud of their accomplishments, even if it is playing a scale, that's big.
Yeah. That's great. Those I love those kind of aha moments as well. It makes you feel like something's happening.
Yeah.
Um, because I've I think you mentioned it earlier. Those moments or some of those lessons where it kind of just feels like the grind, like you're working, but it's you don't really see the horizon ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
now, let's see what either from your the teachers that you've worked with, or maybe as you've been teaching yourself, what are some really big core lessons you feel like you picked up?
Oh, let's see. Um, I guess the one big thing that I didn't do until I started teaching full time, or like, a lot, is um, being really prepared and knowing how to practice.
Mm.
I tended to just kind of show up to lessons and be like, explain the Copeland to me, like teach me the WC. And a lot of it is like, well, you got to just put the time in. And I was just expecting them to, say the magic thing and it clicked. So I wish I could go back and redo a lot of my lessons and my studies, just so, with this kind of different perspective. And also that being, really organized in your time for practicing, for doing this, that, the other. It's crucial for success. Music, or, majority of the people I've taught over my long teaching career, they don't go into music. They just really like it and they enjoy it. And they can study it at a collegiate level, but ultimately it's not their income. So just being really structured with your practice time, being organized in everything that you're doing, has helped them be very successful in finding careers or getting into college.
Yeah.
So I find that my type of teaching kind of lends itself to, yeah, this is pertaining to clarinet right now, but there's actual a life lesson, as I call them, like learn how to be organized,
Right.
basically. You'll always need it, no matter what you're doing. So I think that's kind of like the overall important thing, with my teaching is you just have to know your boundaries. You have to know how to sit down and discipline yourself. You have to know how to problem solve, which again, I never really did. I was like, this doesn't work, fix it for me, And a lot of it is just like we're gonna have to just sit down and figure it out. Like I'll give you tools and we'll talk through it, but a lot of it is just sitting and just getting through it, But then learning that that's okay and that's good to do that, because sometimes that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I hope my students take away from lessons is just kind of be a problem solver, be very organized with your time, know how to manage, know how to micromanage, things like that.
Yeah. I love hearing that, because I've that's a lot how my studio has played out as well. Like I don't think I've had anyone leave my studio and go on to like collegiate music study. They've gone into trades or like some other completely unrelated field.
Mhm.
But like you were saying, the types of skills, the type of person you need to be to effectively study clarinet in the in these high school years, and so like that type of person is a more productive person as an adult. So I love hearing that. I don't know if that's what confirmation bias or something, but it's
No, yeah, but I mean, it makes sense. It's like you're help molding a young person who will hopefully take all this and learn from it and grow with it, and then teach someone else the same thing. And I mean, I guess I'm just also really fortunate that a lot of my students are just good people to begin with, and then just very smart. I don't know why I get the smart students, but they're like perfect scores on the ACT type of smart, and I'm like, I don't even
yeah.
want to tell you my score, but and they take so many AP classes, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and like it makes me feel like I was such a slacker in high school. But I find that those students, they thrive in this kind of concept of, all right, sit down and fill out your free time and figure out when you can practice, and then you're going to study and you're going to work and you're going to do this, and then problem solve this issue, figure this out. And I think they love that type of thinking or mentality. So, but it's good because that's their whole rest of their life,
Right.
like
Yeah.
again, regardless of what they're doing, they're gonna have to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, it's a double blessing then if their mentality is already set that way, and that fits with your style of pedagogy and the way it's organized. It makes sense to me that you're getting a lot of those students if that's the kind of studio you provide. It kind of attracts
Mhm.
the similar energy attracting, I guess.
Yeah,
But
definitely not like one of those studios where it's like you're taking it because the band director wants you to, but you're not gaining
yeah,
anything from it. Like
the
that's
drudgery of obligation.
yeah, I'm past that. I've done a bunch of those, and I mean, when I tell even I teach a academic class at Shy Arts, and it's a wind rut class, and so we study. It's a 2-year course. So this year we're doing the sonata through all different time periods: Baroque, classical, romantic, contemporary, for all wind instruments. And it's a very relaxed class. We basically just listen and discuss music, look at the score and things like that. And, you know, I tell them again, like it's even if you're not gonna pursue this, or even if you don't play trumpet, like you're gonna have to study this material. You're gonna have to know, you know, a couple of questions. It's just a good practice to get used of, you know, when I tell them of getting used to doing stuff you don't really want to do, but like you have to and stuff. So it's like I have that model where it's like if you're in my class or you're using up my time, you're gonna learn something, whether you care to or not. Like you will have retained some sort of information. Just because I think it's valuable for both the student and the teacher to feel like the time is important. You know, we're not just going through the motions, and
Yeah.
that type of thing is pointless, you know. So make it count. Again, like even if you're a senior right now and you're going into engineering, great. Tell me, why was the saxophone invented? What year was it invented? Why was it invented? You know, like you got to know these things, even though you're never going to learn it. You want to make sure that you're utilizing your time. So
Nice. Let me swing back towards your performing side. I know that it's fun. It's fun with the kind of careers people have. There's a lot of different facets we get to dig into here. Who do you feel like are some of your major influences as a clarinetist? Burger King guy, not not.
yes. I would say definitely my teachers that I've had, my private teachers, all of them. I had two in high school, and my first one, she was the one who started me in sixth grade, and because of her, I got to the point where I was excited about clarinet and knew that I was going to be a clarinetist. Um, I had to make a really hard decision my sophomore year of high school to switch teachers.
Hmm.
And, she understood, and we're still friends to this day. But I credit her for just teaching me so much about the instrument and just being a really good example. Like, I remember every time that she would play for me, I was just so like in love with her sound and was like, that is this, I want to sound like that. And then switching teachers at Vanderbilt, he actually was a former student of Larry Combs at DePaul. So I got to hear clarinet tone that just was, 100% what I wanted to sound like, and everything was just so clear, precise, articulate. Like, that was the model for me. And then my teacher in undergrad, like just being so caring, so observant. Like, there would be times where he would just ask, how are your classes going? And, I was always assuming he meant music. And he'd be like, no, like, how's academic? And he generally cared about all the students outside of clarinet, and I felt like I could go to him and if I had an issue or a problem, and I would feel 100% comfortable going to him. And just the amount of knowledge he gave me about how to teach clarinet, like different little tricks and tips. And, he himself was like the master of giving you 8 different ways to think of a concept. Like if it didn't work the first time, he said, all right, try this, try this, try this. So much of my teaching is actually him, just because I want to make sure that I'm giving my students as many different visuals and ideas and exercises and thoughts. And then my teachers at Northwestern, just really kind of putting the finishing touches on playing and the importance of proper, embouchure, articulation, hand position, like just really making sure that it's not glazed over, you know, being
Mhm.
really, really meticulous. So those are definitely the people that influenced me as an educator and a player. And then also Richard Hawkins has been someone that I met in between my junior and senior year of undergrad, and he was my mind was blown, first of all, when I was at a music festival with him, and I remember being like, oh, the mouthpiece maker, like I played this mouthpiece, okay, cool. And the camp was set up where it was basically just a bunch of master classes and lessons and you
Mhm.
know things like that. And I remember the first day showing up, and there was maybe like 20 of us in the room, and I was writing down notes or whatever, and all of a sudden I heard like this gorgeous, rich clarinet sound, you know, really reminded me of my Vanderbilt teacher, and just being like, I remember stopping and looking up, and it was Richard playing, and it was like unbelievable. It was everything that I was like striving to be. And then just watching him in action, you know, with every single masterclass he taught, every single student improved by the end of it. And like the fact that I was actually able to hear that type of progress right then and there, it was just like, holy cow, this guy is all knowing, you know, like he would sit there and he would listen to the student play for a few minutes, and he'll go, okay, here's what you're doing, and here's how we're going to fix it. And that to me has always stuck. And that is the way that I kind of tackle things. Like I want to be able to hear what someone's doing and go, okay, so here's the issue, and you know, fix it like this. So he's been like, you know, in terms of like, you know, the celebrity clarinetist, I still think he's one of the best teachers of our generation right now. An amazing performer, such a nice guy, and just like crazy smart. Not like just clarinet related, but like just naturally very intelligent. Um, and always glad to help. And you know, the way that he approaches clarinet is very intellectual, but he's able to portray it to his students very easily, you
Mhm.
know. And he knows how things work, and he knows how to get the student to respond.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, probably he's like the overall, you know, just, you know, and I've been in close contact with him ever since that summer, and never really going to Oberlin or whatever. He has never hesitated to take time to answer my questions or to listen to me play excerpts or, you know, talk shop. You know, I mean, like he gives me so much time and everything, and it's really, again, like that's the type of person I want to be, someone who is just a nice guy, you know,
Yeah.
someone who enjoys doing what he does, so is generous to his students and those that are asking questions or whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a hell of a role model to have. It
yeah, yeah,
makes me more curious to dig into him myself. Hopefully, as things open up, I don't know. Uh, does he hit any of the like trade shows? I know Clarinet Fest is coming up in the summer. Is he the kind of guy that does those kind of events?
you know, it's funny, he tends to say no to Clarinet Fest. I think he recently just did one, but I think David Schifrin had asked him, or you know,
Okay.
something like some big name asked him, and you know, you're not going to say no, right? But I think in general, he does maybe smaller things. Definitely international pre-COVID. You know, I know that he would tour around and go do a lot of stuff, but oh, you know, a lot of times during summer, he, you know, takes the time to just kind of enjoy summer, you know, because he's busy from sunup to sundown during the school year with
Yeah.
students and recording projects and playing projects and, you know, mouthpiece this, that, and the other, you know, and stuff. So it was a real rarity, I think, that I just happened to go to the festival that he was going to and stuff. And you know, he's so young too, and that's the thing. Like when we showed up, I remember being like, is he one of the students, or is he one of the teachers and stuff? So that like was also just another fun appeal, you know, like he's just, you know, one of us, you know,
Yeah.
stuff. So, but yeah, I know once things probably get up and running, I'm sure he'll probably be asked to do some stuff, and you
Yeah.
know,
Somewhere around. Yeah. I'll look forward to it. But let's see. Again, on the playing side a bit. Uh, what's some repertoire that you feel like really moves you? I know there's a lot of repertoire that we're kind of obliged to do as clarinetists, but what's some that just like it's really satisfying to you?
I think one of my all-time favorite pieces is the Premier Rhapsody by Debussy. I don't know what it is. I mean, I heard it in high school, and I think it just was one of those things that it just resonated with me. It was super different from what I had been listening to in
Mm.
terms of pieces. I mean, I've been listening to the Mozart since middle school, and it's great. I love Mozart. And I think there's definitely moments of the concerto that I just think are just the tonality of everything is just really amazing. Like I just get swept up in it. But just hearing the impressionism in the Debussy and just kind of the lyricism, and I don't know, it just really was fascinating to me, and it was a goal to play it on my senior recital in college. Just one of those things, like junior year of high school was like, okay, that's gonna be a recital piece. Trying to think of other pieces. um
I mean, it could go as far as like orchestral rep or chamber rep, just anything that you've gotten to play in that it's like, hey, I really dig this. You're like, for example, I've had to do my share of solo playing going through, university degrees, but I've always found I tend to prefer playing in chamber music. There's
mhm,
something, most of the time, there's something about the intimacy between the musicians that appeals to me.
mhm.
I mean, but I also enjoy playing in orchestras, but given the choice, I tend to gravitate towards, maybe like two to six players or so. It just
Mhm.
feels comfortable for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in middle school, my friends and I formed a woodwind quintet, and it wasn't even a real. I mean, it was with a bass clarinet instead of a bassoon and a saxophone instead of a horn. But
Yeah, yeah.
we ended up we played gigs. We played a wedding. We played luncheons. We were on national television playing like a theme song for a show, and then we went to like every church in Middle Tennessee every Sunday. We were playing different things. So woodwind and quintet to me is like probably the same thing to you. It's home. It's very comfortable. It's where I were with my closest friends in middle school, and we were playing fun rep that was, you know, Mozart
Yeah.
transcriptions and stuff. One piece that I've never played, but I actually just coached it with some students at Shy Arts, is the Hindemith Quintet. I just
Oh,
think
yeah, yeah.
it's so fun and really interesting. I one of these days I want to do the whole thing. Another thing, the group that I've been playing with since last summer, Panda Cat players, we've done a bunch of pieces. We've done two Mozart serenades, which are amazing. We did the Dvorak serenade, which how can you hate that piece? I think it's so beautiful. We did the Strauss Serenade, which was a piece that I was really interested in. I played it a couple years ago at a festival, and I think that's just really beautiful stuff as well. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that smaller stuff is fantastic. Rachmaninoff, anything by him, I think is fantastic. Especially his piano concertos. I just think they're beautiful. I'll tell you maybe my favorite composers.
Yeah.
For orchestral works, I love anything by Ravel, by Debussy, Sostakovich, Stravinsky. Stravinsky is probably that, he's the guy that I heard that just like knocked me off my chair. I received this 3 CD set in high school called Classical Thunder. It was one of those infomercials, and I made my mom get it for me. And it's still one of my favorite collections because it's like a movement or a short piece of big standard rep played by LA, Cleveland, I think New York. I mean, like the top orchestras. Has a couple of the planets on it, and it had the Infernal Dance from Firebird. And I remember just like listening to it and just hearing the opening piccolo and then all the percussion and the offbeats and this and that. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, I didn't know music could be like this. And so Stravinsky's, I just love all of Stravinsky's stuff. Prokofiev, love. Mahler, oh my God. Like I've played Mahler 1 maybe like 5 or 6 times, and I'll do it 5 or 6 more times. Like anytime that I'm in the car and the Mahler Symphony is on, it's just like I get chills. Just some of those moments are just so magical. Trying to think. I mean, that's probably like the short list, but those are, I'm more of like the 1800s to early 1900s Berlioz, type of
Yeah.
music. I just think that it is,
Right.
so cool. Strauss, Strauss is amazing. So
There's something magical about that, like from around then and on, about orchestral rep, because I think composers were really starting to figure out what to do with an orchestra and really how to draw out, like the magic of it. And even now, like some of the best like contemporary orchestral music I've heard. Again, it greatly varies. I'm not saying I'm super into all contemporary music just by default, but even the best contemporary orchestral music I've heard, the composer has some skill drawing out just new magic, and they don't always have to involve like, crazy extended techniques or like, the weird kind of stuff that people assume you have to use with that kind of music. Like sometimes it can just be good music and be new.
yeah. I mean, I played with Chicago Composers Orchestra, and it is an orchestra that's dedicated to only music of living composers. So it's really, I do that to just test my counting, to be quite honest. Like, because sometimes you get a piece of music and you're like, I don't even understand. But I think that, I mean, I've played a bunch of concerts with them, and I think the pieces that I've enjoyed the most were the ones that could be written, 100 years ago, but there's like a new spin on it. And we're in a different time period where, each era had something unique about it, right? And in the contemporary / modern, whatever we want to classify, the extended techniques, the atonality, all those things all of a sudden became big. But now we're kind of at this crossroads where it's like, what can we do? We've done tonal, we've done atonal, we've done like crazy noises with the instrument that's not really a note. We've done music with recordings. We've done computerized stuff. So it's nice to see composers who are currently working and testing their abilities, and seeing how they're navigating through what I find is a very tough field.
Yeah.
Just knowing that a lot of times composers' work isn't really appreciative until they're gone. Right, so it's a good group to play in. It's also just, it's hard because a lot of music is just really challenging, and it's fun to kind of figure out some of those things, and then like quarter tones, or all sorts of a fourth sharp, 3/4 sharp. I played a piece that was like that, where you had to figure out how to play a fourth sharp or 3/4 sharp and stuff. So you're just like, I don't know. I just know sharp.
What do you even refer to for that? Because I know, like if you need a different fingering for a certain run, you're like, okay, here's my book of fingerings or whatever.
Right.
If I need to play a 3/4 sharp, what references am I looking at for that? Or do I just ask people around, like, hey, what do you do for this?
Yeah, I think what I have a couple of friends who are like super into contemporary music, and they're awesome at it. So there's been times I've asked, and then there's also times where I'm like, all right, well, if it needs to be a little sharp, I'm gonna open up a key, like the basic type of things like that. That particular piece in general was it was almost impossible, I think, to do that unless they gave us the actual fingerings, because everybody in the orchestra had something like that. And it's like, well, unless we have a key, and some of them they'll give you, the actual written out procedures. But I think that was like one of those instances where, Finale was able to do it perfectly. That might be more of an electronic only piece, because as a human, we can only manipulate our instruments so much. I mean, like, you would have to like put your pinky down at just the right amount, like, every single time that you have to do that. And it was so sporadic that, instead we try to adhere to it as close as possible, and the desired effect was created in terms of what the composer was looking for. So and it's good for doing those gigs. It's also helpful for them, because sometimes they don't know how to write down what they want. So we do exactly what's on the page, and they're like, no, I want it more like this. And it's like, oh, here's how you should write it then. So it's a learning process for everybody involved. But it's also just sometimes terrifying, because you have no idea how it goes. There's no reference recordings. Sometimes we're premiering things, and
Right.
Stuff that's brand new. But it's also nice to have that kind of aspect in your playing, that you're constantly challenging yourself to figure out rhythms and
Yeah. Well,
techniques.
that's certainly always an adventure with that kind of rep. And I do like that idea, like, because otherwise, even with the best rep, if you're in a rut, you're in a rut. And
Mhm.
finding those things that kind of keep you fresh and motivated, and keep you on your toes, that's important.
Yeah, which is, yeah, exactly why I did it. It's like I'm playing orchestral music, I'm doing some chamber music, solo music, but I need something that I have to really sit down and count, figure it out. There were times where it's just like, you sit down and you're looking at the music, and there's times where I'm like just really trying to figure out, how do you play 7/5 or something like crazy like that, and just coming up with your way. So yeah.
That's great. I need to do more of that myself. Uh, I think I'll be more motivated once I know I'm playing in groups regularly again. I don't know my I play with West Suburban Symphony here usually, like around. So usually play around like the Hinsdale area, but it's just done until further notice,
Yeah.
But yeah, just something else to put on the list.
Yeah.
Let me.
Contemporary. Yeah.
Are you uh, are you still okay on time right now?
I do have an appointment at 3:30.
Okay,
So
I'll I'll abridge this a little bit, and
okay.
hopefully you'll hopefully we'll talk again soon, or and hopefully in person.
Yeah.
There's a lot I want to do with this and with my fellow clarinetists. So this won't be the last time we speak. But let me ask you a little bit. You're working with D'Addario, right?
Yes.
Um, what was it? Just kind of an opportunity that came up, or is there something about the company or their what they provide that drew you to them to want to work with them, or how did that work?
Yeah. So it all started in 2016. My friend was working for them, and he said, can I send you a bunch of free reads? And I said, of course. And I had tried the reserves, the Rehker reserves back in 2009, 2010, and I liked where they were going, but I couldn't get them to work. And then I tried them again in 2014 when they were rebranded as D'Addario Reserve. And again, I couldn't get them to work. So he sent me a bunch of boxes, and I started playing on them. And at first I remember being like, yeah, these feel really, airy, they're kind of scratchy, but I kept playing, and before I realized I was, 20 minutes in a practice session, and all of a sudden I noticed that my sound was much better.
Hmm.
And I just was like, oh, I need to actually water these reeds. I need to do something different. And I kept playing the D'Addario reeds for weeks, and then the weeks turned into months, and then about 6 months of it I was referring to my students to trying some, and that's when I kind of made the realization of, oh, I think I switched. Like I didn't.
Surprise!
Yeah, right. I just expected to be like, yeah, sorry, couldn't get them to work. But I really liked them. They were incredibly consistent for a natural made product. And then I think it was at the end of the summer, he said, "Are you still using the reeds?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually buying boxes now, and I'm performing on them, I'm teaching on them, I'm auditioning on them." And he's like, "Would you want to be a clinician in the Chicagoland area?" And I was like, "Yep." So I did an interview, and they flew a bunch of us out to LA where the factory is, and I got to see how all the products are made and see what the education program was all about. And it was just so interesting. I loved what the company was trying to do, and I loved the people that were representing it. A bunch of younger people in the field who were freelancers, and yeah, it's fantastic. I still think the company is fantastic. I still think the products are as consistent as you can find in terms of cane. Their ligatures are great. Their mouthpieces are great. Great, great, great. So, yeah.
Are you on one of their mouthpieces now as well, or?
Actually, I mean, I have a lot of students who use the mouthpieces. I've stuck with my Hawkins. I use the Vocalese, the Beethoven Vocalese ones. It's just that's how I've grown up. I've been playing the Hawkins ever since junior year of high school, and I've tried the Van Dorns, and I tried this, that, and the other, and I'll switch for a while and then come back. But yeah, no, the reserve mouthpieces are really good actually. And what's nice about those is they're as consistent as you can possibly get, So I kind of feel like they started this new trend on mouthpieces where instead of hand finished, they're doing computerized machinery where it is exactly the
Yeah,
same. And that I think what the vocalists are doing, and I don't know, I'm sure other mouthpiece makers, they're kind of catching the drip that, oh, that's actually better. easier, right? And also, if I break it, I'm not going to freak out and
Yeah.
spend
Just
all
get the
this time and money.
same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feel like I need another one, you know. And with the reserve, they sent me like 60 mouthpieces at the beginning of the season, and I tried 6 of them of the same model back to back, and it was exactly the same. So I think that again, like they were kind of one of the first to establish this new use of technology to be consistent with everything.
Mhm.
And I know that other companies are starting to follow along. But you know, and what's awesome is D'Addario's been around for centuries. You know, they started in like the 1600s in Europe making strings for like the lute and harp, and then they migrated to the U.S. in the early 1900s. Again, still working on the strings, and they kind of perfected the non-animal intestine string. It was, you know, the synthetic string, and then they branched out to percussion, and now they're doing woodwinds, and they have their whole orchestral string stuff. So it's a huge family-owned company, family business, and yeah, I mean their goal is to just produce a consistent product for the consumer.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like they're doing a good job of it. Let me ask you this. Let's say, for I don't know if there's an average clarinetist out there, but let's say, like, the advancing high schooler through our our uh, span of different adult professionals. If they want to get, in your opinion, if they want to try D'Addario products, and they've previously been on something else,
Mhm.
what do you suggest people experiment with as like kind of their first introduction to the brand?
I would probably say start with the reeds.
Lead.
Definitely start with the reeds. There's 3 different cuts. The descriptions will let you know what the equivalent is to say like Van Doren, but they have like just like the thin blank, which is traditional blue cut. They have the classic, which is thick blank, and it's gonna be like the V12. And then they have the evolution, which is unfiled, the thickest blank, which is gonna be like 56 Rulo Peak.
Okay.
And so what I would suggest is they also make little sample packs that you can get like on Amazon or at the local store, and you can do 2 different strengths. So say that you're on a 3.5, you could do a 3.5 and a 3.5 plus, because the sizing, in my opinion, is a little bit softer than Van Doren, and I think a little in a couple other companies. So my suggestion would be to, try possibly go up a half strength first. And then, it took me months before I realized I switched. So give yourself more than just the first week of playing. I think so many people are just quick to try a read and be like, nope, didn't work for
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
you have to. My friend, who actually I think you interviewed, Taylor Massey.
Yes.
Yeah. So I saw him, I think 2 summers ago, and I gave him some evolutions, the newest cut, and then I think some classics as well. And it was a solid 3 months later that he said, I bought a box. I really like them. But it was, 3 months of keeping it in rotation and trying it in different situations with your current setup, with your current reads. So I think when people are looking to switch, then they're going to have to be a little bit more patient than a quick fix. They're going to have to just keep it in rotation. Maybe out of 10 reads, 8 of them are Van Doren, 2 of them are D'Addario, or whatever brands you may be using.
Right.
And then just start it in your practice session, and start light. Do it only for like 10 minutes, and then increase it, and then do longer. Then maybe do a teach on it, and then also do rehearsals and performances. You could also get students on them, and you can listen to how the students sound on them. But I think the bottom line is just it takes months before you are fully adjusted, regardless if it's a reed, mouthpiece, ligature, clarinet. I mean, it takes a while to fully be transitioned to a new product. So the slower, I think, is better.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know I've been guilty of that myself. Like, just pull it out of the box and give it the side eye, the stink eye if it doesn't work right away how I want. But that's good. That'll help a lot of people giving the brand a shot, I think. Let's see. I'll let you out here quick. Other than clarinet, I know there has to be more to you. What else do you enjoy doing other than your music world?
I love cooking and baking.
Oh, nice.
That's my fun thing. To me, it's simple. Like baking, it says use a half cup. You use a half cup, and it turns out perfect every time. Where clarinet, it's like, okay, I put a reed on, and I know how to play that, but why can't I do it when I need to do it? So I love sweets. I love baking. I like making food for gatherings for friends. And I also like figuring out ways to substitute things. So if like someone's gluten-free, or if someone is dairy-free, or if someone's doing low carb, I love trying to figure out ways to make the same meal and have it taste as close as it can with those dietary restrictions. So it's just certain things work, certain things don't, obviously. I'm currently experimenting with taking dairy out of my diet as my doctor suggested, and it's terribly sad because I love cheese and I love milk and all that. I feel so much better, but I've been experimenting with vegan cheeses, and I need to make my own because I'm not, it's just, it's not as good as I want it to be.
That's what I've heard with a lot of those products with this with the cheeses you mentioned, but I've heard a lot of that with nut milks and things like that. By far the better experience is if you just do it yourself at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The baking part intimidates me because that seems like such a precise science. Like if I get something wrong in the measurements, that it's gonna,
but the thing is, the tools are there. You just scoop the flour and you're done. I mean, it's like foolproof to bake. Cooking, you have a little bit more liberty because you can add a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that. Baking, it's it has to be correct, the science of it. You have to have the right lifter with the right acid in the base, and all that type of stuff. So I find it to be fun, and kind of my thing I'm doing now a bunch is just baking and cooking dinner like every night, just keeping myself busy. So
maybe at some point then our paths will cross again with both sides, the food prep and the music side.
Yes, that'd be fun.
But I'm stealing your time away here. Anything else that you'd like the audience to see or hear from, just shoot it on over to me, email me. I'll put it up in the show notes. But it's been a great pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you making the time. Despite the life and circumstances we're living in right now. And I look forward to talking to you again, and hopefully along with everyone else I've talked to, seeing you in person and playing at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, and let me know if you ever have a question about D'Addario or anything else that we've talked about, and definitely look forward to meeting you in person soon. So
yeah, well, thanks. Take care.
All right, you too. Stay safe.
You too.